You're listening to the Black Eagles podcast with Sinan Schwarting and Kaan Bayazit.
Ahmet Dursun Sergen aldı. Sergen Bülent yan yana. Sergen Bülent. Sergen. Yanında Tümer var. Tümer'e doğru atıyor. Kaybetti. Tümer topu aldı. Sergen aldı. Gol! Gol! Gol! Sergen attı. Sergen attı. Şampiyonluk geldi. Sergen attı. Şampiyonluk geldi.
İbrahim'in pası. Roma. Şimdi Ahmet. İkinci gole gidiyor Beşiktaş. Ahmet.
All right. Welcome back, everybody. Episode 65 of the Black Eagles podcast. I am your host, Sinan Schwarting, live from New York City. And back again is our special co-host, our substitute teacher, so to speak, Evran Akman. And Evran, welcome back, sir. How are you doing?
I'm alright, just happy to be back. Filling in for Kaan.
Good fill-in. Thanks for coming back in, of course. And yeah, let's just cut to it because today was a big day. And it's going to be hard not to spoil anything because I think we're probably both in a pretty good mood. And I don't want to say much more. Okay, so today, Beşiktaş was on the road against Rizespor. Rize was pretty hot coming into this match after a pretty solid second half of the season thus far, coming in from the break. I think everyone anticipated that Beşiktaş could struggle a little bit here on the road, especially given that Rize has challenged some of the bigger clubs in Turkey already so far this year. But yeah, before I jump into the lineup, Evran, is there anything you want to say going into the match that you had anticipated?
I don't really have any expectations. I think the only main thing was that the news that Quaresma had an ankle ligament issue, so he's going to be out up to a month. That was my main worry. But I thought for Rize we should still be okay. Yeah,
I guess we have a question from the audience there that we have to address later on. But okay, yeah. So that said, that's right. For the lineup, Quaresma was out, and so the team featured the same formation that Şenol Güneş is sort of bound to feature. Loris Karius was still in goal, despite the rumors raging even more. The flames mounting around them. As far as him complaining about wanting to leave and the club wanting him to leave. And anyhow, he was still there in the goal. On the back line, we had Isimat Mirin back into the lineup alongside Domingos Vida, with Gökhan Gönül on the right side and Caner on the left. Gary Medel and Atiba Hutchinson were on the back line of the midfield, so two defensive midfielders, plus Dorukhan Tokuz up front, so kind of three defensive midfielders in a weird way. Although Dorukhan obviously played in more of an offensive role. Adem Ljajic played on the left side of the midfield with Jermaine Lens on the right and Burak Yilmaz up front. So that was how they were going out. Now, do you have any comments about that, Evran?
I mean, it's pretty much what I would have expected. It's basically the same team. I think we would have hoped to see Kagawa in there, but last week it didn't exactly. Not last week. Last game that we played, it didn't exactly knock our socks off Kagawa and Ljajic combo. So I think he picked the safe option to stay with Jesse Ljajic on the field.
Yeah, I would have to agree that things were not perfect up front with those two. But I think I recall saying that there was enough there that I wanted to see them kind of build on it. So it was a shame that was not, the opportunity for that was not provided. And of course, it's not a good look if we're trying to get Kagawa interested in re-signing with the club and sticking around, if he can't even crack the starting lineup, which I would imagine was the main reason why he was willing to leave Dortmund, even though I know he's very loyal to the club and a big fan of it. So too bad, perhaps, on that front. But yeah, let's just cut right back into it then. So, yeah, with that said, with the lineup out there, Let's just cut right into what happened on the pitch. The game started out as you'd expect, lots of energy back and forth. Rize looked like they were going to pose a challenge, which of course they would. But with that said, Beşiktaş would strike almost immediately, and in the 8th minute, Domagoj Vida would get the ball rolling by scoring from an Adem Ljajic cross. And what I'm going to do is have our friend Evran over here sort of give a color commentary on each goal. So tell us what happened on that goal, Evran.
Nothing crazy, just an out-swinging corner by Ljajic. Beat a guy in between two defenders, and he was basically unmarked in the 6-yard box, and it was just a simple header home.
Yeah, and of course, nice celebration shortly thereafter. Everyone very excited. I've noticed that Domagoj Vida and Adem Ljajic are very, their little partnership there, certainly in terms of celebrations, which is interesting. I know they're Croatian and Serbian. I don't know much about the Yugoslavian Civil War, but I think they were on the other side, opposite sides of that. Anyway, with that, so still, like, despite the fact that Beşiktaş scored, Rize was pressing. It looked like a very open match, and nonetheless, only 6 minutes later, in the 14th minute, Beşiktaş struck again, and this time, Atiba Hutchinson sort of brought the ball up, passed it out to Adem Ljajic in a position outside of the box, and this was perhaps the goal of the season for Beşiktaş. I mean, it's certainly a contender for it. Give us the color commentary.
Yeah. So Ljajic got the ball on the left side of the box, cut in, found Atiba short. Atiba held the ball, laid it off for him, then from out like the left side of the arc on the top of the box, Ljajic just one-timed it, curved right into the top corner. It was like one of those like classic goals. That's how I describe it.
Yeah, and I mean, a wonder strike, really just beautiful. Again, I think you'd have to say it's a contender for goal of the year, at least thus far.
Goal of the week.
Certainly goal of the week, yeah. In the 26th minute, there was a yellow card for Mohamed Aberhoun, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. I hope I am. If not, such is life.
Last card, Moroccan.
We'll deal. And so again, from there on, still Rize was far from out of the match. It was very back and forth. Rize deserved more, and they would get a little bit more in the 42nd minute with Vedat Muriqi. Is it Muriqi? Is that how it pronounced?
It's Muric. Muric. That's how the commentator says it.
Muric, yeah, I know the commentator. Yeah. I don't know how Albanians would. So apologies to Albanians if it's not Muric, but that's how we were Kosovo. Getting it.
Yeah, actually.
Kosovo. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Fair enough. My bad.
Same
that's
thing,
like
but a little different.
Yeah, no, I think I could probably get like a shivved for that, in the street. I don't want to get on the wrong side of any conflict. Yeah, but so Murici, very nice little goal, I've got to say. It looked like it could have been offsides, and I think a number of defenders seemed to think it was. But why not? Give us a color commentary on that one too, everyone.
Yeah, so it was a combination between Muric and Boldrin. He got the ball on the right side of the field, a little bit in that half spaces, like they like to say. He cut it back to Boldrin, then he made a run in behind the defense. He was behind 3 of the defenders, but Vida didn't step up in time. So he was played through on goal and just did a casual left-footed, low finish past Karius into the back of the net.
Yeah, kind of a placed finish, a little curve on it. Would you say that Karius was to blame at all for it?
I mean, obviously, you'd always say you could do better, but it was mostly the defense with the dysfunction in the offside trap.
I would have to agree. And it looked like a number of guys were playing the offside trap rather than playing to defend the guy, so that didn't help. I don't know if there was miscommunication there with Vida. Whatever it was certainly unfortunate. And so the score was 1-2, given that the game was in Rize. And it looked like, of course, Rize had been earning something in this match, and sure enough, they were right back in it. It looked like they could very easily turn the tide. The match was very open. Rize was attacking fairly fluidly and looked dangerous, but of course Beşiktaş was as well and had a number of shots on target. Gökhan Akan, is that his name?
Yeah, the goalie.
Gökhan Akan for Rize was a solid keeper for much of this half, despite having allowed the 2 goals. Certainly kept them in it seemed. And the game went into halftime with Beşiktaş still with just that slender 1-goal lead. Yeah, I don't know. It looked like it could have gone either way, to be honest. But so yeah, then the second half, certainly something was different. The energy was different. Beşiktaş was much more attacking minded, although also sort of weak in the back in some instances. It looked like, again, Rize could easily turn the tide here and equalize. In the 58th minute, Caner Erkin got himself a yellow card. Does that suspend him?
I don't think we had any suspensions.
No,
that I remember.
And so yeah, still the same kind of pace was there. And then in the 64th minute, again 6 minutes later, Burak Yılmaz again in one of his sort of typical goals, got the ball against the run of play, sort of zoomed forward, put it away, gave Beşiktaş their 3rd goal of the match. Give us the color commentary. The assist was given to Dorukhan.
Yeah, Dorukhan played Burak in on goal. So, like a curve run. He ran backwards to try to stay on side and then redirected run towards goal. It looked like he was, I don't know, a country mile offside, as I like to say. But the fullback on the right side of the field was well behind the defensive line. So the 3 defenders, they all stopped, put their hands up, and he was gone. But the guy on the far side screwed him all over. They didn't realize. So he was in on goal, and coming from the right side, instead of going across the goal, he just kind of lifted it to the near post, and then he did an interesting celebration where he taunted the fans.
Yeah, shushing. And he'd been antagonized by the fans for much of the match. He sort of did a little flap. You might argue he was actually fouled. I don't really have an opinion on it. It could have gone either way. Certainly, he didn't need to provoke, especially given that it's like Şenol Güneş is going to have something thrown at his head, in these instances, not necessarily Burak. So we've been there before. But anyway, a nice goal, kind of typical Burak goal, beautiful finish. And Beşiktaş is leading 3-1, or 1-3, I should say, in the 64th minute. Burak got a yellow card on that play for that provocation. In the 69th minute, he was then taken out of the match for Güven Yalçın, which would end up being a decisive move. As he was taken off the pitch, he had a bit of a skirmish with his coach. Did you see that one, Evren?
Yeah, I saw, didn't really show it, but you could see as the camera was shifting, he looked like he yelled at Şenol.
There was an exchange for sure. I think Şenol Güneş was probably not pleased with what he did. After his goal, I should give a shout out to Sally in our group chat. He said that they have this sort of father-son relationship, and that was an extension of that. That's a charitable take, I would say.
I mean, I think there was, if you remember back in the day, there was those pictures of Mancini and Balotelli. And Mancini would say that he loved Balotelli, but you see pictures of him grabbing him by the shirt, looking like he's about to fight him in training. So, it's definitely possible.
Yeah. I mean, whatever it is, the results are there. Burak Yılmaz scores again, and a nice little input, although he could have probably put more away if he was a little sharper on the day. But whatever, they're winning 3-1 for about a minute, because after the 69th minute sub out in the 70th minute, Aberhun, the same Aberhun who had been given a yellow card earlier, scores for Rize, bringing them back within a goal, and once again keeping alive the fear that all Beşiktaş fans surely had that they very likely equalize. Give us the color commentary in that one.
So I think this was kind of typical of Rize today, that in their run of play, their center back scored. They were playing quite high up the field. So the left back, Meljak, I believe is how you say it, put a low cross in right into the edge of the 6-yard box, and in came the center back, Aberhun, how you say it. And he flicked it past Karius into the near post.
And
So it was
and I'm going
a goal we've definitely conceded before, like that similar type of low cross near post.
I'm going Melyak. I'm going with the soft J for that guy's name. Or Melnyak. Sorry, Melnyak.
Yeah.
Sort of like Ljajic, Melnyak. I don't know. So speaking of Ljajic, just 1 minute later, and I think for a good solid minute, the group chat was on fire. Like, oh, here we go again. Beşiktaş, Luciano Gunesh, get the hell. And then literally 1 minute passes. Guven Yalchin smashes the ball home on an assist from Adem Ljajic. And again, I'm handing it over to you, Evren.
All right, so for the 4-2 goal, Guven was slipped through by Adem Ljajic. He made a cross from the right diagonally to the left. Ljajic did a straight through ball in between the center backs. And Guven just, again, kind of like Burak before, instead of going to the far post, he lifted it into the near post.
Yeah.
And that was his first goal in a while, actually. Guven.
Yeah, and a very nice goal. It was a day of very nice goals, but that was his first and a really nice one. In the 76th minute, Nakulma came in for Okechukwu. Nakulma was probably expected to start by many. I think he's got a pretty good rep in the Super League. In the 77th minute, Aminu Umar came into the match for Atif Chashue. I would also, I think, have expected Umar to be fit into the lineup somehow. I don't know. Whatever. The result was not so much different. They all played somehow anyway. In the 78th minute, Shinji Kagawa came into the match for Jermaine Lens. And in the 78th minute, on a free kick, Adem Ljajic scored again, making the score 5-2 or 2-5. Evran, what do you have to say about that free kick goal?
Nothing crazy. It was just outside the box after Guven won it. It was from the left side, so as usually where a typical right-footed player would take it. And he didn't really put much curl on it, but he got it up and over, decent placement, and the goalie was just left stranded, didn't even dive for it. So very pretty goal.
Yeah, and don't go far from the mic because just 4 minutes later, Adem Ljajic would repay the favor to Guven Yalcin, giving him an assist and making the score 2-6. Tell us about that one, Evran.
Janera played like one of those driven balls, like a hard, not a long ball, but like when it's like 6 inches off the floor and it just flies, split through the whole defense. Played the Yalcin on the right side. He cut it back to Guven. He had a lot of time, but instead of taking a touch, he just slotted the ball home from the top of the box into the left side of the goal.
Yeah. In the 83rd minute, Mehmet Uslu came into the match for Melnyak. In the 88th minute, Ridvan Yilmaz would make his Beşiktaş debut, looking like he was 12, coming in for Adem Ljajic. Aurelien, our resident French boy, said he was the little blondie, came in. That was kind of funny. Typical Aurelien. In the 89th minute, another goal. I hope you haven't left your podium just yet, Evran. Guven Yalcin scores another assist credited to Dorukhan Tukuz. Tell us about that.
Now, this was kind of like an unintentional assist. Dorukhan just gave a short pass to Guven well outside the box, picked his head up. No one closed him down, so he just, clean lace shot, just a laser straight ahead into, again, the left side of the goal. It actually popped out of the goal, so the referee didn't initially give it because for some reason in Rize, I guess they don't tie their nets around the goal properly. So the ball came out, and then after all the players started screaming at him, VAR told him that it went in and the goal was given. But it was also a very nice goal, kind of spoiled by the fact that it bounced out of the goal.
Yeah, there's a bit of controversy even. I think after that goal, the ref looked like he was ready to play on. He didn't see that the goal had been scored because it popped out of the back of the net. And a number of Beşiktaş players had to sort of rush him and say, hey, that was a goal. So kind of almost a major malfunction, and it would have deprived Guven Yalcin of his hat trick. But of course, it was fixed thanks to VAR. They saw it, and yeah, there had even been a previous a little issue with the net. I noticed they were playing with the bottom corner of it earlier in the match. Did you notice that, everyone?
So when Muric scored his goal, the first one for Rize, it popped out of the goal also on the same corner, and the referee like told the groundsman to fix it, but he pointed towards the wrong spot. That you could see where the ball came out of, but they fixed another part that wasn't broken. So,
Yeah, it looked like there was some kind of miscommunication all around there. That like he kept pointing at something, and the guy was like doing something else, and like he pointed at it again, and the guy would go back to the same place. There was a malfunction of communication for sure. But anyway, that would be it. That, in the 89th minute, that made the score 2-7, Beşiktaş. So thank you for all that color commentary, and that would be it as far as goals. So if the 9 goals didn't satisfy you, then I don't know what to tell you. There would be 3 minutes of extra time, and Beşiktaş would come out victorious with a 5-goal margin. So yeah, that's how the match would end. Before I get into stats, and I'll go back into stats, so that'll be a segue back into the match for us to start doing analysis again. But before that, Evran, why don't you tell us a little bit about the table? So after our match, because we were on the last match, the Monday match, the whole week was sort of sorted. The table is set for the match day. Tell us about that, Evran. Where do we stand now? And I think we stand just about where we stood last week.
Yeah, all the top 4 teams won this week, so we're basically nothing changed with us. We're at 50 points, 4 points ahead of Trabzon, 5 points behind Gala, and 11 points behind Başakşehir. So obviously we play Başakşehir next week, so someone has to drop points next week. And Gala also plays Fenerbahçe, so maybe they'll also potentially drop points. Speaking about Fenerbahçe, they're still in the relegation fight technically.
Yeah, we have to talk about our relegation watch.
Yeah, Göztepe is at 27 points, and Fenerbahçe is 5 points above them. So you would say probably Akhisar might be Gamze 4 points behind Bursa, but Bursa, Göztepe, Ankaragücü, Fenerbahçe are all kind of still in that fight. However, the mid-table is really just crunched. So from 14th place all the way up to 5th place, there's only a 5-point difference. So even Yeni Malatya, who's in 5th place, could technically get relegated at this point because they're only 10 points clear, technically.
Wow. Well, so there it is. So still 11 back. I think it's pretty safe to say that the title's out of reach. There's no way you're coming back 11 points with so few games left. It's not mathematically impossible.
Could be 8 next week. Could be 8 next week.
Yeah, right. Well, fair enough. And so yeah, we'll talk about that at the end of the episode and preview what's to come. But yeah, still, it's 11 points is a bit much. But Galatasaray is still there for the taking, and they're going to be facing Fener. So, but yeah, we'll talk about that in a little bit. But so yeah, to get us back on track here, let's talk about the stats. We'll do our stat flash. And so yeah, in the 9-goal masquerade this week, the stats were pretty interesting, and they would not reflect that scoreline at all. So shots went to Rizespor 19-11, though on target Beşiktaş led 11-6. And so that's right, Beşiktaş had 11 shots and 11 shots on target, which explains the 7 goals scored, I suppose. At the very least. Possession, interestingly, would go 60% to Rizespor. So Beşiktaş only holding the ball 40% of the match. Not too much of a surprise given how far behind Rizespor was for so much of the match. But even still, you'd expect a club like Beşiktaş, with the rate that they've held the ball for much of this season, with an average of something like 55 to 60% possession over the course of the season, to only hold the ball 40% is certainly a rarity. So credit to Rizespor there. Passes completed, 528 by Rize to 363 for Beşiktaş. So again, they're out passed. Accuracy was 80% for Rize to 75% for Beşiktaş. So not one of Beşiktaş's best days passing, but not really outside of the range of normal. 75% is pretty normal for Beşiktaş. Nothing too shocking there. Fouls, Beşiktaş committed 10 to their 8. Yellow cards went 2 to Beşiktaş to only 1 for Rize. Rize went offsides 6 times, and Beşiktaş were offsides twice. 3 corner kicks for Rizespor to Beşiktaş's 2. So despite their dominance possession-wise and 19 shots in total, only 3 corners. So, a weird game. And if you look at the stats, they certainly do not reflect the scoreline. It would, if you just saw the stats and didn't know the scoreline, you'd think that Rize would have won, or maybe that they were behind much of the match because of possession. But with 19 shots, you'd assume they would have put a few away. So very odd statistics. What do you think, Evran? If you had to explain to someone who didn't see the match that did these stats reflect what they would see, in the scoreline? How would they reflect what they didn't see?
I think if you were watching the game from the start, Rize was attacking, and then Beşiktaş kind of scored off. Basically, the first time they got the ball in the attacking third, 7th minute, shot from outside the box, goalie saves it, we score it off that corner. And then right after that, Rize went and continued to attack. And then by basically our next attack, 6 minutes later, Yahi scores from 20 yards out. So it was kind of like boom, boom, out of nowhere. They thought they were playing, they were attacking, missing chances, and they just got countered twice and conceded. So
yeah, and a number of those goals outside of the box,
yeah.
Which required incredible finesse and technique. Kind of not once in a lifetime necessarily, but certainly like very nice goals that will probably be on the top 20 of the season. But when push comes to shove.
Yeah. But overall, I think they have a very young team. Just like defensively, they have all mostly foreigners. So I'm always a little skeptical of that. They attack a lot for a lower side team, and I think when things started to go downhill, they really went downhill. That's why we scored 4 goals unanswered at the end. I mean, if you look at probably, to be honest, they deserve to be up. But at the same time, at 2-0, before they pulled it back 2-1, they really should have conceded a penalty. It could have been 3-0 at that point. So they always looked likely to score, but they always looked prone to concede at the same time. And I think this was probably the first time since that, I'm not sure if you remember that Ghent we played, right, in the Europa League, away, where we actually countered attack instead of dominating possession.
Yeah.
Although we're not used to that, I think just the player quality carried us through, not necessarily the overall play quality of the team.
Yeah, no, the kind of individual talent certainly was on display today. And I think when you're playing on the counter, as we were, sometimes that can really be the difference, as we saw today. And just like in that match you were mentioning against the Belgian side, Beşiktaş looks kind of good in that mode, which is rare. For the most part, they're the aggressor. They're the dominant force. So it's a nice look. Although you can't really maybe you can't make that your central tactic when typically you're going to be in that dominant role, whether you want to be or not. But yeah, let's get right into it then, Evran, because we have that user question that we have to get to, and I think that'll take up a little time. Quickly, let's talk about analysis here. Who's your give me your highlight and low light for the match?
I mean, I think it would be unfair to say anything about Elias was the highlight. 3 assists and 2 goals it's up there. I think you gotta say, he's gotta be like the EA Sports Team of the Week, for FIFA, pretty much a slot. And you don't see a 5-goal performance too often.
Yeah.
Low light, I feel like I made him my low light last week, but I think the only bad player on the field was Jermaine Lens.
I knew you were going to do it.
However, I do have a little bit of evidence. He lost the most duels on the field. He lost 10 duels, only won 1.
Well, that could be down to his work effort.
Yeah, but he completed 0 dribbles. He only attempted 15 passes. He had 0 key passes. He was okay in certain moments of the game, but overall, it seemed like we didn't really he was just kind of ghosting at times.
Yeah, I mean, he was a bit of an engine, you could say. You always need someone doing the muscle work, but yeah, he could have been a lot better. Obviously, he didn't have any positive stats in a match where just about everyone did. So that's never a good look, especially when you're one of the three main guys attacking, in theory. But yeah, that's a tough one. So if you're giving your highlight to what did you just say?
Lige.
Yeah, if you're giving your highlight to Liajic, I'm probably gonna have to give mine to Durakan because he had, I think, 2 assists on the day, and was an engine, but a productive one, perhaps, unlike Jermaine Lens, and in a role that should not really be his role on the side. He shouldn't typically be in that forward midfield role. I think he'd be better in a secondary role alongside perhaps a defensive midfielder that we do not have currently. Something more in the Atiba mold, but at the same time with a little bit more ability to go forward. So, kind of a player we don't have. Combination of Medel and Atiba. Although Medel doesn't really have the ability to go forward either. So I don't. Yeah, it's completely a different guy, but someone who can defend and hold the ball like Atiba does, but can also be more
younger Atiba.
Yeah, but who can work on his offensive game a little more? Because you'd like for that person to. Because I don't think Durakan could be fully relied upon. He's not a outright central midfielder. I don't think so. I think it'd be nice if the defensive midfielder that you'd pair him with could also enable his offensive game a little bit. But anyway, so I'm going to give him my our podcast secondary highlight, and for my low light, I suppose I might go with Medel. He didn't have a very poor game. I think this is a hard match. When you win 7-2, it's hard to really dish it out. But he ghosted in a way that, in a role where you really don't want someone ghosting in the center of the midfield. He slid back and played, where he shined was when he'd slide back and play defensively. Khan eludes, so I should say that Khan contributes in an after the beep, in a hashtag after the beep this week. He scheduling didn't work out, so he apologizes for not being here. But he did say a bunch about the match. And one of the things he talks about a lot is he seemed to think that we were playing in a 3-4-3 formation with 3 defenders back. And I think that's because Medel so often slid back and played in a defensive role. That's actually where he was okay. But that's not where he was actually tasked to play in terms of the formation that was presented. When he was in the middle of the midfield, he was not so effective and lost the ball a lot and seemed like a headless chicken, honestly, in a way that you don't really want Medel to be, because at least he's typically quite sharp, getting the ball back for you. And I don't know. I was underwhelmed, but not so much. I almost feel bad really giving it to him because, again, nobody was really bad today, whatever. But such is life. We've given them out. There's no taking it back. So Evran, is there anything else you want to say about this match before we move on to the question of the week?
Shout out to Guven Yeltsin for his first hat trick. I believe first professional hat trick.
Yeah.
A lot of people were hating on him in the chat before the game, and I've always been, the big champion that Guven is a good player. He's not just a better version of Pektamek, and I hope they watched the game today and took notice. Yeah,
Guven Yeltsin, big shout out to him. I'm not a hater. Our group chat sort of had a little tirade about him pre-match. I did not agree. I remained silent. I pleaded the fifth on that. I see potential in him for sure, and I think he shined very much today. I almost forgot about him, but you can't really give him the highlight of the match because I think, as a sub, he didn't play the whole thing. He didn't, he played about 30 minutes. I mean, a very effective 30 minutes to be sure. But anyway, So this week we have a special thing to do, and that's why we sort of rushed through the match analysis there. I don't think there's a whole lot more to say. I don't have any real talking points there. We know everything that there is to say about Shane Ogunesh and his tactics has been said. I really wanted to see Kagawa in there. I hope he's not undermining our ability to retain Kagawa into next season. Although I think the board is doing just fine as far as dissuading him by not paying players and creating other drama. So I don't know. Maybe it's a pipe dream to even want to keep him anyway. But yeah, let's quickly move on. So this week we have a special segment where we have a follower of the podcast. I'm trying to find his name. I can't. Well, anyway, he's in Istanbul. His name on Twitter is @Nesaitrien, Nesaitrien, and he had a good question that he wanted us to debate, and it's well timed because, as everyone knows, Evran is the podcast's resident Quaresma fanboy. So the question's well aimed. So he asks, with or without Quaresma? And so I suppose the question is, should Beşiktaş play with or without Quaresma in the lineup? He says if he's not on the pitch, the team goes faster into the third zone and finishes better, in my honest opinion. What do you think about it? Now Evran, again, I have to stress this. Evran is a huge Quaresma fan, and so I'm gonna pass the mic to you. You go first. I'll give my rebuttal. I'm the resident cynical jerk, so I have no problem being anti. Although again, I want to say before I go on the record as being on the opposite side of whatever you say, I'm a Quaresma fan in general. I think I honestly think he's a club legend, and I think 10 years from now, all the haters are going to be so fondly reminiscing about, oh, remember when we could get a guy like Quaresma, especially if we go through financial crisis, as it seems is imminent. So, we're going to go through this dark spell, and guys like Quaresma are going to be like dreams, perhaps, for a little while. So there will be a time when people eat their words. But with that said, let's go right into this. So Evran, what do you think, sir? With or without?
Well, right now we don't have a choice because he's hurt. And if I'm imagine he wasn't hurt today, let's say, I can see where people are coming from. But if you want to go back to the last Rize game, just for example, where he had 3 assists, so maybe when we won 4-1, so that's. He also did miss a penalty, but that's okay. I think overall you would say when he said that we transitioned to the third zone, I'm assuming it means the offensive third.
Yeah.
For more American viewers, Quaresma is always kind of chilling in that offensive third, so I don't really see how he affects the build-up as much. I guess he's not as active as getting in between the lines as always is.
Yeah,
I'm not sure. I think
his point is that with a more active player on the wing, you're I feel like moving into the zone as a unit, maybe more unified, and so therefore with the ability to be more fluid. I don't know if Lens is inherently the answer there. I think on his best, on his best, he certainly can be. Anyway, I don't want to interrupt you. Go ahead.
I think typically the left side midfielder for the past couple of years has been that more live wire player. Today was Lajic. In the past, it used to always be Babel, who would play more inside and get in between the lines. And Quaresma was always that outlet out wide. I think when things are going good, you don't necessarily need that outlet out wide. But I think when he's playing well, Quaresma, he's able to pick apart, let's say, a more defensive team. Rize is not the most defensive team. They're actually probably one of the least defensive teams in the league. Even their defensive midfielders, although they're box to box, are still ball playing midfielders. Or you don't have a true a destroyer in there, which you typically see in the lower Anadolu teams. So I don't think you could argue based on today's performance that Lens really contributed to the build up play. That he was the reason that we were playing the way we were. I mean, maybe you could argue anything you want, but I don't think it's reasonable to say that. Maybe he would have screwed things up, but I think in all honesty, that right side was kind of a vacuum anyway, and we built up through the left side. So even if you stuck Orkan Çınar, I think it would have been the same result. Overall, just Laiç would have taken the game.
That's a deep stab. So all right, I wanna like put some asterisks on some of your comments here, in that I've always perceived that you see Jermaine Lens as the sort of main rival of Quaresma's for that role on the starting 11. Certainly, it would appear that way with Adem Ljajic being moved out to the wing more often. Certainly, after a performance like today, that would maybe continue. But with Kagawa now as an option to play up front, in theory, it would certainly seem that the real competition is for that position on the right side, and that competition would be between Quaresma and Lens. And so I think a lot of your, let's say, negativity about Jermaine Lens comes out of a kind of defense for Quaresma. And to your defense, when you're talking about Quaresma and the other option is Jermaine Lens, it's a lot harder to say definitively, like, yeah, get Quaresma out of there because Jermaine Lens is so much better, because that's not the case. I think it would be nice if we had another option there, a younger option that we were bringing up, and someone who we could play. If only Gökhan Töre wasn't the kind of disaster he's always been as an individual, and could have sort of fit into the grand scheme of things. He would have been coming into age right about now and would be the go-to sort of option. But we don't have that, and that's the real problem here. I will agree with Juste too that Quaresma does not aid in the build-up in a way that we could certainly use someone doing, and that's been an issue. It's not just Quaresma. There's been a bit of a vacuum in the center of the midfield as well, where we're not getting a lot of support there. Dorukhan has been a nice breath of fresh air, at least in terms of energy, not always in terms of the finished product, the end product. But I don't know. It's hard to say take Quaresma out, because we don't necessarily have a better option there. I don't dislike Lens to the same extent that you do. I think he does provide something else. He is more of an engine. He does come back and fight with the midfield more, perhaps. And the stats might not be pretty, but I think that's also a reflection of kind of what he does sometimes in a positive way. But you can't for like kind of Khan is a really big Jermaine Lens fan, and so I don't want to take his spotlight here. Maybe he needs to be standing in and saying more, because I don't have that much to say in defense of Jermaine Lens, to be honest. Like, he's not really wowing me.
The podcast would never end if me and Khan argued about
Lens versus Quaresma. But so my answer is that I would love in the offseason for us to have brought in someone who's going to challenge for that spot that's younger, and I think one of those guys goes. You don't want it to be Quaresma. I would actually say I would not mind Quaresma ending his career with Beşiktaş and I think it's about time he does kind of hopefully gracefully take this role of being a kind of super sub as he ages, as he has with his national side. Because I think he could actually be very effective in that role. And when things aren't going well and you definitively need that outlet, when things aren't very fluid or fluent in the midfield, that's when you could really use a guy like that. And so discarding Quaresma might be harder to do than discarding Lens if we're bringing in somebody else. But that's a big if, especially given this board and especially given the economy in Turkey and all the stuff that everyone knows about, the dark side of this whole season. So yeah, that's my take, I guess. I need a better option before I say get rid of Quaresma. But, if we're using this season as the sort of segue for Quaresma to move into that super sub role, I'm for that. And I'd love for Lenz to work out, honestly, because we did pay a bunch of money for him and we're paying him a hefty salary. So there's no sense in him and rooting against him. But he isn't. He isn't. I think we have to be realistic. Certainly not at the moment. He's had his moments, but not of late. But yeah, so thank you for the question, by the way, just say too. And for anybody else out there who has questions, I'll try to make more of a effort like I did before this episode to say, hey, we're about to record. Someone, shoot out a question. But that was a nice little segment. Do you have any parting words, everyone, as far as defending Quaresma or rebutting anything I said?
I just want to say I do not hate Lenz in any way. I just feel like he has underwhelmed a lot for vast majority of his time here, and I think the praise he gets is just to spite Quaresma, not necessarily because he has performed. Obviously, the player he could be is very good, but we have basically almost never seen that. Maybe with a couple glimpses here and there. But if you want to talk about Quaresma being inconsistent, I don't think you could argue at any point Lenz has shown any sort of consistency.
That's fair. I think you can't really argue that. I mean, I think you could argue that our manager undermined his ability to do that, as he's done to a number of players. And speaking of which, I'll make a side note. So Nicolas Isimat-Mirin was back in the starting lineup this week. So Enzo Rocco, that flash in the pan, good performance has gone unrewarded. He's back into the doghouse or whatever. Isimat-Mirin is back into the squad. He had a okay game. Any comments on Isimat-Mirin today?
I don't think there was any really. He didn't do anything bad, which I think is good. He didn't look as unconfident as last time he was on the field. Obviously, it wasn't as big of a game, but I liked him since his first game when he came here, and I hope he keeps his confidence up. So when he was kicking the ball out against Fenerbahce when things started to go poorly, I think that was maybe, aside from the reported injury, I think that's part of the reason why we didn't see him for a few weeks.
Yeah, for sure. And I agree. I'm really rooting for him. I think he adds a nice presence back there. He's a good foil to Domagoj Vida. Hopefully we'll be able to keep him, given the salary and everything. But he's certainly pegged himself as a Beşiktaş diehard. I mean, Vida. So if we can keep those two, that'd be a formidable pairing to go forward with for quite a while. It remains to be seen what's going to happen with this club going forward financially and how they deal with this crisis and how it all unfolds. But yeah, I'm going to let you do the preview for next week briefly, just so that you can get a few words in edgewise, everyone, before we go. So who are we playing next week, and what other games are important going into the weekend, next weekend?
So on a Saturday, it's a big game in the Vodafone Park. Beşiktaş was the table toppers, Istanbul Başakşehir. We'll definitely have a couple of our Beşiktaş international friends there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so apologies. Good point. Sorry for the no stadium sounds, of course. In a away match, we don't have anyone in Rize, so that's why we had our good guest, our good friend of the podcast, Evran, doing color commentary as a replacement for all of the stadium sounds we typically have. But anyway, so yeah, Evran, standings.
Yeah. Well, one thing is
not
also
standings. Sorry, Evran. Next.
Next week. Demba Ba is making his return to Beşiktaş. This is his first time playing against Beşiktaş, I think, in his whole career, and this is his first time back in Vodafone Park since he had that short loan spell thing last year. Never mind, he played against us with Göztepe.
I was gonna say.
However, short-term memory.
It's better not to remember that.
That'll be interesting to see if he actually plays. But obviously it's a huge game. We have not beaten Başakşehir for it seems like the longest time since Mario Gomez was still on the team was the last time we beat Başakşehir. So that's a chance to cut the deficit to 8 points. Also, there's another Istanbul derby the next day. Fenerbahçe hosts Galatasaray, and despite the fact where Fener is in the table, I don't think you can ever say, Fener sucks, they're not going to win the derby, because they always show up for those games, even if their season's not going well.
For sure.
So there's a definite possibility that if we win, Galo could also drop points, and the season might be able to turn around. Those are a lot of ifs.
On the flip side,
yeah.
If we beat Başakşehir and Galatasaray won, they would be very much back in the title hunt in theory, right?
They would close within 3 points of first place. So then it would be a one game between the two of them. And they do play each other, Gala and Başakşehir. So.
And we would be 5 points back on Galatasaray, correct?
We are 5 points right now.
Oh, we are?
Yeah, as it stands.
So we'd be 8 points back, and we'd be...
If we lost and they won, yeah.
Yeah. We're 5 points back on Galatasaray.
Yeah, so everything's still to play for. But this is a huge week to see if we're still in it. And Trabzon, who's 4 points behind us, plays Bursa, in Bursa, so that's a huge game for Bursa. It was only 1 point clear of the relegation zone, so there is a possibility that Trabzon could close the gap between us to only 1 point next week. So huge week.
Yikes.
Cross your fingers.
Yeah. Yikes.
Do your rituals. And
yeah, right. Get your dirty socks on, or whatever the hell it is. Whatever you're doing for good luck. Yeah, well, so on that note, I guess I'll take us out because Khan's not here to do it. He's usually the man who does it. So yeah, thanks for tuning in as always. Stay tuned for the rest of it. We're going to close out the season here. Some exciting, important games coming up. Hopefully we can close the gap and make a run of things to end the season. So stay tuned for that. Of course, follow the podcast on Twitter at Eagles_podcast. Follow the mothership, Beşiktaş International, for all the latest news 24/7. We got our team of jerks working around the clock as always to get you the latest at Beşiktaş_INT. Follow me at Sir_Rights_a lot. And of course, follow Evron at fan of BJK. Evron, do you want to say anything to everyone? Do you have anything to say before we go?
I got nothing. Just I'm ready for Saturday. That's
next Saturday. Yeah, exactly.
5 days from now.
Yeah.
Oh, this is
go Beşiktaş.
By the time you listen to it, it might be 4 days.
And shout out to UVA, who has just clinched the championship, the NCAA basketball championship. Literally, as we're recording right now, they're doing the little trophy ceremony and the ticker tapes everywhere. They just beat Texas Tech. So if you're into basketball, college basketball, there you go. That's on my TV at the moment. YouTube. Yeah, that's it, man.
Hey guys, schedules unfortunately have not been able to align, but I wanted to give my 2 cents on the match today. Beşiktaş beating Rizespor 7-2 away. I have to be honest, this was a match that I was quite fearful for to an extent. Rizespor have been fantastic since the winter break. They've been one of the most on-form teams, not just statistically, but also just the way they've been playing. They've been playing some great football, and they've gotten a whole bunch of points already in the second half of the season. So this was a match that I really went into expecting not to win it. And then looking back at it in hindsight, the way, well, just the way we won this, how emphatically 7-2, it's incredible, really. But I do have to think that we have to keep our feet on the ground here. 7-2 was a very rough scoreline. It did not really reflect the match properly, in my opinion. I thought Rizespor were very good, put us under a lot of pressure, but conceded too easily. We were very efficient, and I wouldn't say that Rizespor defended necessarily poorly because I think a lot of our goals were very good quality, and in fact, Rizespor did not allow many chances. But if you look at the types of goals we scored, especially Guven's third goal, Laich's first goal, Laich's second goal. Those are all goals from outside of the box, um, and not in the sense where the goalkeeper can be blamed either, in my opinion. So those are okay. Maybe the defense should have put a little bit more pressure on the ball, but especially Laich's first one, that is almost impossible because he shoots it that quickly, and his shot was absolutely perfect. It was perfection. And then his free kick was great too. Lage had an amazing game, 2 goals, 4 assists. For Guven to come in as a substitute and score a hat trick in 20 minutes, it's fantastic for a young kid like that. Although I would like to say, let's not get ahead of ourselves. It's not like he still has a lot to prove. Remember Kyle Lauren last season, he scored a hat trick too, and we shouldn't put too much stock into that type of thing. But definitely Guven is one to watch, and someone we can, going forward, can be at least a squad depth player, and hopefully more. But I still have my doubts about that, but we'll have to wait and see. But like I was saying, I don't think the scoreline really reflected the match. Rizespor were the dominant side for the majority of the game, but they were trailing the majority of the game too. So Beşiktaş perhaps inviting a little bit of pressure, but Rizespor doing well. The most interesting part for me was the lineup, a 3-4-3, which of course in defense morphed into uh, a 5-2. Uh, Tree really, with Jana and Gökhan playing as wingbacks a little bit. It was a very interesting lineup, and so I like the three-man back line formation. I think it works well with Mirin, Vida, and Medel, and that way you can actually slot Medel into the team, because I think we're all kind of in agreement that Medel in midfield doesn't really work all that well, but in defense he's quite good. Especially, if you don't have to rely on him to win too many headers, and you can have Mirin and Vida as the main guys going into the physical duels in the air, on set pieces, on crosses, stuff like that, and Medel more like the moving part in that three-man defensive back line. I kind of like that. Um, but again, yeah, the scoreline definitely exaggerated. Rizespor, I mean, at the end of the day, we did so well. You can't say they deserve to get a point or anything like that, because we were just so great in attack. But yeah, Lige absolutely stole the show. And I just want to say one more thing. Really crucial goal from Burak Yilmaz, but I think the reaction afterwards was unnecessary, and that's the kind of stuff we don't really want to see from Burak. I understand where he's coming from. The crowd, the Rizespor home crowd, had been heckling him the entire match, and they've kind of been riding him hard. But I think he should be above that, and just let his feet to the talking. And perhaps if he didn't take that unnecessary yellow card, he would have stayed on the pitch, and he would have gotten 2 or 3 more goals. So I think he's just kind of hurting himself there, because after that goal from the quick 4-2, after they scored right after, like 7 or so minutes after Burak had made it 3-1, after that fourth goal, it was really done and dusted, and that's when things started escalating. But up until that point, it was a very competitive match, and Rizespor deserve credit for the match, for the display they had in terms of quality and all that. But in the end of the day, once that fourth goal went in, I think There was no doubts anymore of who was going to win it. But I have to say, up until that fourth goal, I honestly thought we were still going to give it away. And of course, that all harkens back to that Fenerbahce match where we gave away a 3-0 lead. So, but after that fourth goal, I think we were pretty safe. And great win for us heading into next week's match against Beşiktaş here. Hopefully, another win for us there. And who knows, maybe a Champions League spot next season. Peace.
Beşiktaş International hopes you enjoyed this program.